Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Super Deluxe Gamescast. It is Thursday, January 6th, first podcast of the new year. It's gonna be a great year.
I don't know about that.
I tried my hardest to sound positive about that.
Why would you jinx me in the first minute of the podcast? How dare you?
Speaking of the podcast, I went back and I was looking at older episodes, like back from 2016, end of 2015, and I look so much more like a dad now than I did. I'm wearing hoodies, and I've got my glasses on, and I don't bother trimming my beard. Like I'm looking more and more like a dad who's just given up.
It's a very specific type of dad.
It is. Finn, don't worry, your time will come. There will be a time when you are a dad who's just given up. Finn, you're looking very game dadish, by the way.
Thank you. So just brief for those that forgot, because back in November during Extra Life,
there was a whole year ago,
right? There was an incentive for $500. I would shave my head, me not thinking anyone would do it, and then me realizing I have to do it. But they were very nice and said I could wait until the new year, so that the first Christmas pictures with my new daughter are not just me with a weird shaved head. So I did it yesterday at work, or 2 days ago at work, and it feels very weird. And I don't know.
Does it feel fun when you walk outside and there's a breeze and you're like, oh, that's not
it actually
what I
feels
should
fucking
feel.
great. I can attest to
I
that
would
fact.
love if it was cold enough for me to feel it, but again, I live in Florida and we're already back up to like 80 something degrees, so
I hate you.
whatever.
So we do have two guests that I want to introduce tonight. Of course, Grant up here in the corner. Grant Stoner, huge advocate for accessibility in games. Grant has been on numerous times. He's an old friend of the show.
Unnecessarily funny, right?
Yeah, like, and funnier than anyone should be. Funnier than me for sure. And also just an incredibly good looking fellow. So Grant, thank you so much, man. We all really appreciate you being here.
Alright, thanks for having me. I always love coming on.
As always, we will see by the end of this episode. And first time ever on SDGC, down there in the corner, Ken Seward. Ken, I would talk to everyone about how cool you are, but I would rather you tell our audience who you are, where you come from, and what you do. So go ahead, man. The floor is yours.
Oh man, do I go all the way back, or do I just kind of like current stuff?
So start with when you were born.
Okay.
This is actually the Kenny origin episode.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
nice.
I love it. I'm in for it.
This is great because my birthday is actually coming up this month, so that works. It's full circle and everything. But
Ken, real quick, how old are you going to be?
I'm going to be 38.
Okay, I don't feel so old.
I know I don't look it.
You really don't. You absolutely do not.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I look every one of my 41 years. Ken, please go ahead.
Yes. So yeah, let's see. I actually started writing about games back in 2006 when I was in college. I'm gonna try to speed through this. And a friend of mine who saw a flyer, they were like, "Hey, they need people to write and play video games, review video games, and all that good stuff." And I was like, "Oh, why not? It's I talk about them enough, play them enough, and I have some free time between electives, so why not?" And that turned into like a month later me going to E3. And so from there it was kind of like fast track to like doing like really cool stuff. Unfortunately, that site is no longer around. It was called Game Plasma. It's no longer around. I went to NX Gamers, and I started an entity called United Front Gaming. That's where the UFG comes from. And with NX Gamers, they did like professional gaming. So they had contacts with like Call of Duty, or Activision for Call of Duty stuff, and Microsoft for Halo stuff. And so they had no one to do news, reviews, and those sort of things. So me and my crew, UFG, went with them to do that, and which got me another trip to E3, which was dope. That site unfortunately didn't last very long, so we started to do our own site, UFG, or United Front Gaming, and did it for up until, I want to say, the pandemic hit. And before that, I hadn't done like any freelancing I started freelancing about 5 years ago. And the idea was, we got to make it on our own, or at least that's what we thought. Like we wanted to be like Giant Bomb and
Right.
Polygon and whatnot. But yeah, revenue was not there, unfortunately. And then the pandemic kind of hit, and it was like, it was already hard enough to make money. It's like super hard now. And so I kind of had to make a decision like, do I do like freelancing full time, kind of, or do I try to balance UFG and freelancing and all the other stuff I needed to do? And I was like, you know what, I just can't. So I left UFG up to be like a living resume, and then started leaning more into freelancing. But since then, I've written for a bunch of sites, IGN, Fanbyte, Games Radar, Tom's Guide, just a ton of places. And it's been pretty great. It's been pretty cool.
I hope you enjoyed that E3, man. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope it was everything you thought you hoped it would be, because we're gonna get to that. That's been stuck in my head ever since you were like, I gotta go to E3. I'm like, man, rest in peace, man. No, Ken, dude, it is great to have you here, man. You are a guest I have particularly wanted on here for some time. So I am glad we were able to make this work tonight. Now, what we're gonna do tonight is, as always, we're gonna go around the horn. We're gonna discuss what we've been playing. We're gonna start off with the letter written by the Square Enix CEO. We're going to get into some PSVR 2 stuff, and the conversation is actually going to take some interesting turns that you might not expect, which is one of the reasons I brought Grant on, other than the fact he's just great. And then to close it off, we are going to talk about E3's, I guess, either digital showing or complete cancellation. There are two competing trains of thought right now, and also what that means for gaming conventions going forward as a whole. But let's kick it off with what we've been playing recently, and I'll go first because I'm going to be quick. I just actually this morning finished my replay of probably the greatest war game of all time, and that is Advance Wars on the Game Boy Advance.
Bit of a swerve,
I'm
and
glad for where he was going.
Advance Wars is literally... Now, I've played this game so many times over the years. Advance Wars was and remains a perfect video game. It's perfect, Finn.
No, my question is actually just, with the Switch remake of 1 and 2 coming very soon, what made you want to jump back into the original? Was it just because, hey, I've got an analog pocket and why not?
Well, it's a combination of I've got an analog pocket and, but also I thought it would be valuable to replay, because I'm going to do Black Hole Rising next week. I thought it would be valuable to play the originals again a few months before Advance Wars 1 and 2 reboot come out. So that way I've got kind of something to measure it against, right? Advance Wars is looks like Maddie in chat says that she should play Advance Wars. You absolutely should.
Yes.
The Advance Wars it's got some of the best sprite work that you have ever seen. And plus I never it's weird for someone to say that a war game is wholesome and pure, but this absolutely is. And
I mean, it's very cute and cartoony. It's not,
right. Yeah. It's, I like to think that these guys are just real tired when you take them out, as opposed to they die. They're just really tired. They're going to go get some sleep, and they'll be fine tomorrow. But yeah, please play Advance Wars and play Advance Wars 2 Black Hole Rising, and if you can play Advance Wars Dual Strike on the DS. Another great fucking entry.
A great comparison point in a lot of ways would be like the Fire Emblem games, because of that same kind of genre of turn-based, grid-based strategy game. Right. I will say they're not quite as... They're definitely more difficult than the Fire Emblem games tend to be.
They're actually pretty hard. Yeah. Like advanced, like it looks cutesy, but it's pretty difficult.
They tend to be pretty easy to grasp at first. Like they're very accessible in the regard of they tend to not be overly complicated in their mechanics or anything, but the actual difficulty of the games ramps up pretty quickly. So
and some of those battles can take up to an hour. Like I mean, they're not fucking around. Like
especially in it's all about resource management. It's also got RTS mechanics to it.
Yes.
Without the real time, at least. So
it's turn-based.
Right. Otherwise, I'd be completely incapable of playing them. So
and I also finished Mother 3 again for like the millionth time. Which is one of my favorite GBA games of all time, one of my favorite RPGs of all time, and of course a game that I do not think would be possible. I do not think a localization of that game would be possible today for numerous reasons. The Magypsies being definitely being one of them. But all in all, just a very special game. I think you could if you did some rewriting, Derek.
You and I have talked about it, some,
right? Yeah,
and you've gotten my insight as like somebody who actually is non-binary. Like, it's complicated, and it's a matter of like the context matters a lot, and the Magypsies in something that is otherwise not very queer coded as a work of art can come across and raise our hackles a little bit, versus if it was a show or a game that was, you know, predominantly made by or themed with queer themes, it would be a whole different, you know, but it is what it is, you know.
And
it wasn't done out of malice. It's just
right. But yeah, I've been playing Game Boy Advance games recently because I've got an Analog Pocket and GBA games fucking rule. Kenny, as one of our guests, why don't you go ahead and go next, man? What have you been playing this week?
I've been trying to catch up backlog wise. I know
that's
those
dangerous.
Usually, yes, it's a rabbit hole that you never come out of. But you know how it is with, you know, Steam sales and stuff like that around the holidays. You extend your backlog a lot, you know, and but because of, you know, the talk about the best games of 2021, I was like, you know what, I gotta play Guardians of the Galaxy because people have been talking about it and they're saying it's really, really good. Let me try that. And I beat it in like 2 or 3 days, and really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was like well written and just all around fun. I think the only thing I guess kind of didn't like was like there's so much dialogue in that game that, and you know, normal games do this too, where, you know, someone's talking, you're walking somewhere, you hit a cutscene and it cuts the dialogue so the cutscene will play. But they talk so much in this that happens a lot. I end up restarting checkpoints because I'm like, I wanted to hear what Rocket had to say. This was important. Like, stop it. So that was pretty cool. And then like today I got the Oculus Quest 2.
Nice.
And I was like, you know what? It's you know, early birthday gift for me. And I was like, yes, I'm finally gonna get something VR related. And yeah, it came today. I haven't really done anything with it, but open it up and kind of like smell it. But it's pretty great. It's pretty.
Tell
great.
me about the bouquet, Kenny. Tell us about the notes.
It was fresh. It was new, and it was also like it felt like and I guess this might be a little different depending on where you are, like, you know, financially. But to be able to buy something that could be perceived as expensive, but not feel any type of guilt around it. You know, especially during the pandemic, buying something expensive when you don't know what could happen tomorrow is kind of like, yeah, you might not want to do that. And, you know, our hobby is mad expensive anyways. And so, you know, I was like, I want it though. I kind of want it, and it's my birthday, so why not?
Oh, dude, go for it, man. Fucking treat yourself, dude. I'm a big proponent of, especially these days, over the last few years, man, like, dude, retail therapy is important. And if something makes you fucking happy and you've got the money, dude, therapy. Fucking just do it, man. Like, you know, because here's the thing. Enjoy your toys because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Right. So enjoy yourself as much as you can. Like as you can see, I have not poured any money at all into my little gaming office here. So I've got a fucking mural of the entire final battle of Final Fantasy VI on my back wall. But Ken, did you have anything else before we move on to Grant?
No, and just I guess catching up on like films and stuff that I missed. So basically trying to catch up on stuff. Yeah.
Catching up on life, my man. Catching up on life. Grant, what have you been playing this week, and why was it Pokemon?
Yeah, actually, it was Pokemon.
Yeah, see, I fucking knew it.
Pokemon Pearl, Shining Pearl, which are great. I love the remakes. I think they're everything I wanted in a Gen 4 remake. And also God of War on PC.
I have not picked up Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl yet.
And that's a mistake.
I'm trying. There's so many games to play right now, Grant. Although
we
my
did
son
finally get John into Pokemon, starting with
Sword and Shield,
starting
right?
with the Switch. Well, I think it was Let's Go first, and then
well,
Sword
Let's
and
Go
Shield.
for, and it was and that that's Reb. Like Reb was the one who really finally got me. Shout out to Rebecca Valentine. She was the one years ago who finally got me to check out Pokemon. And now I've played. Look at this. Now I've played Pokemon Ruby, Pokemon Emerald. I've played Let's Go. I've played Black and White. I love Pokemon. I have not played the original Diamond and Pearl games. And my son actually sent me a picture of he picked up Brilliant Pearl with his own money today, and he sent me a picture of the box. And he said, "Have you played this yet?" And I said, "No, I haven't, and I probably need to." Grant, how does it compare to the original? I mean, it's a 1-to-1 remake, right?
It is, yeah. It's very much one. If you ask the community, they'll say it's terrible, but Pokemon fans are never satisfied with anything.
You need video game fans are never satisfied with anything.
True. I haven't been able to play my DS in I don't know, 5 or so years, so being able to just play that game that I remember 15 years ago is what I wanted. So there aren't really many changes that justify a $60 price tag, in my opinion. But for me, I haven't been able to play it in so long that it's great to return to my second favorite generation.
Interesting. I'm probably planning on picking it up here next week, to be perfectly honest with you. Finn, you got your hand up, man. But
I do.
Finn, this is SDGC. Just cut in.
Don't call me. My name's not John, so I'm not going to interrupt Grant. So, Grant, who is your starter? Very important question.
On Pearl, it was Chimchar, and on Diamond, it was Turtwig.
Yeah. Turtwig fam, rise up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay,
and,
that was my important question.
Well, and since Finn wants to open his mouth with insults, Finn, why don't you go ahead and tell us? Not that we care, not that anyone here cares, but why don't you go ahead and tell us what you've been playing, Finn? I was gonna say you bald-headed motherfucker, but that wouldn't make any sense because
it would not.
You know,
because I already have more hair back. So I just finished Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. My replay of it. I'm gonna continue picking away at the Pokedex, but I did finish the Sinnoh-Dex, and now I'm gonna see how far I get into the National before that overwhelms me like it always does. But that was a blast because Diamond and Pearl is one of my favorite generations. Not the favorite, but up there for me. I logged too many hours into the DS version.
And I just want to point out one of the benefits of becoming a Pokemon fan is years ago, if you'd have said, oh, the Sinnoh-Dex, compared to the National Pokedex, I'd have been like, what the fuck are you talking about? But I understand the conversation now. I just want to say that it's pretty cool that I know what you're talking about.
But I also agree with Grant. Like, I've never known a community that it has find reasons to hate on everything. Like, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with this game, but you ask the fans and it's the worst crime against humanity. I don't know. I don't drive with that. I think this game has been a lot of. Oh, Kenny, what's up?
I was gonna say, are they worse than Star Wars fans because they don't like anything?
You know what?
Star Wars fans are racist.
Yeah,
and they're very sexist. I don't think Pokemon fans are. We're really entitled.
Entitled and angry, different kind of bad, but I wouldn't put it on that same.
I don't like to talk about Pokemon. I actively refuse.
Kylo Ren mug.
Yeah, I actively refuse to talk about Star Wars. So,
but so after Pokemon,
Smart man.
I also have just been loving my life with Guardians of the Galaxy, and like Kenny said, the just ambient conversations are so good, and it made me wish that if I could change one thing, it would be to add the Sony first party PlayStation mechanic that they used in like games like Last of Us and Uncharted, where if an ambient conversation gets cut off for whatever reason, then they'll just be like, hey, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, and resume the conversation. That's been one of my favorite mechanics in games, because sometimes things happen, but I want to find out what hilarious thing they were going to say, because the dialogue in that game is it never stops. It keeps coming. Like in battles, I love the back and forth. It makes the game feel alive. It makes it feel very comic accurate. And the plot just is filled with deep cut Easter eggs for comic fans as well. And I love that game. Those two have been my big end of year games. So we'll see what January brings to the table for me. Oh, and also Final Fantasy VI Advance on my analog, because we can't have an SDGC without talking about Final Fantasy VI. John, my mural came in. My mural. It was so big.
Did you get the same one I did?
No, I got a commission. The artist had to unwrap it from the canvas and roll it up to ship. It was too big to ship otherwise. So I took it to Michael's to get it upholstered onto a canvas, and I get to pick it up this weekend, and I'm very excited to show you, because it's a mandala. So it's a big circle, and it includes every character, every area, every boss, every dragon, every esper, everything in one big continuous loop.
Please send me a picture as soon as you can.
Oh, I will. I'm gonna do a video, like just losing my mind over it. It's been in progress for 5 years. I've been paying off in installments over the course of 5 years, because this guy, it's so okay. Anyway, I move on. I pass the mic over to Canada.
The only game I have played since December 3rd is the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV.
Wait, Jeff, is that the one with? Is that the one that's free up until Heavensward?
It is the one with the free trial, which you can play through the entirety of Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heavensward expansion up to level.
Interesting.
15.
Okay.
Actually, none of this is true, because you can't buy the game, and you can't sign up for the free trial because the server.
You still can't buy it?
I don't think so. I don't think they ever relisted it.
You still cannot bug me to play this game. I literally cannot.
I'm going to get you in there, Derek. Don't worry.
No.
I'm going to break you down.
I'm at peace.
I'm going to break you down.
John, Britt, and I just recorded 2.5 hours worth of good content. I
gotta edit that first episode. Oops.
It's fine. It's fine. I don't. Do we even have last week's podcast up? So
yes, we do.
Okay, awesome. But no, the expansion was really good. And I kind of go through these waves where I play the game a lot for a month or two, and then I take a few months off. So I'm just riding out this high right now, and we'll see what I get back to. I've still got Vice City and San Andreas in my GTA collection to play through, which are all patched up nicely at this point. So don't play games on day one, folks.
Yeah.
Unless that game is Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster, in which case play it the same day it comes out.
Yes.
As long as you mod the font out.
I'm gonna need someone to teach me how to do that, because
dude, it's
so
stupid
excited.
easy. Like Derek will tell you, I am as computer illiterate as they come, and I can do it in 5 seconds. Like it's a literal matter of dragging a file into a folder.
I'm so excited.
Like that's all it is. I need to start my Final Fantasy VI advanced playthrough before the Pixel Remaster comes out, by the way.
How do you not burn yourself out doing things like this? Because I'm avoiding playing Advance Wars specifically so that I will feel fresh when the remake comes out.
Derek, do you see my?
I want to know, does John actually work? I know he says he works.
He's got too much money not to work.
But then he also
I've been to your
plays
house.
like multiple gigantic RPGs in a week, and I'm just like, something's not adding up here.
To be fair, I've been out of work all week due to weather. So I literally have not gone to work this week because everybody's been snowed in. But I also want to point out something to Jeff real quick. Jeff, when when Finn was talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, I remember when you posted that glitch of Drax just following you all around the ship. And I just like, he would not stop following you. And I kept thinking of that moment in Infinity War when he's just standing there watching Star-Lord and Gamora make out, and he's like, I've mastered the art of standing so incredibly still that I become invisible. And I'm like, dude, honestly, this is like that's just adding to the immersion. Like that's just Drax doing his thing, man. Are we sure that's a glitch?
So I couldn't see either Peter or Gamora's faces for that entire conversation. Jeff. I know.
I'm just saying, like what if you just taken that as like flavor, as like that, adding that MCU flavor.
He was just trying to make sure you made room for Jesus.
Well, and speaking of Jesus,
that's a
I don't like wherever you're going with this. Going.
So
local they disapproves of this joke.
So small little pat on the back here. We may be Square Enix sponsored content creators. This is true.
What about me?
I said we.
Right. You're about to move on to the first topic.
Oh, you didn't go yet. Derek, go ahead.
That's correct.
Sorry, dude. I'm tired, man. Derek, go ahead, buddy.
It's always me or Finn, man.
I'm fucking tired, Derek. Please go. I am so interested in what you've been playing.
It gets harder when you get older to stay up this late. I know.
It does. I've been up till 1:30.
Let me tell you about trying to stay up till 12 on New Year's. It did not happen. Man, I was like 9:30. I was dead on the floor.
Derek, what robot and or monster game have you been playing this week?
So I have actually been playing the Crysis trilogy, which I had played and beaten the original a few times. I love the original. I think it's kind of bland in a lot of ways as a game. It's a little unseasoned, but the actual mechanics of the suit are very cool, and I like the kind of open-ended nature of the level design. So I've beaten the original a few times. I've started 2 once, but never got far in it. Never even touched 3. So look, everybody always talks about how Crysis 1 is the best. It's held up as this legendary game. It's punishing to computers, and it's fine. Like it's a good game to play, but it's a dude in a robot suit dicking around in the jungle fighting Koreans until it's time to fight generic Hollywood squid aliens, and there's like no story, no character, no anything to it. It's very like not even salt and pepper, completely unseasoned. So I get around to Crysis 2. I'm like, look, I'm committed to playing through this trilogy at least, because by the third he's got a bow, and I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna find out. Nobody told me that Crysis 2 and 3 have incredible pieces of like body horror and cosmic horror and some really good personality behind them. I'm like, all anyone talks about is knockoff Iron Man running around the jungle. And I've got 2 whole other games that are like really good, really smart, really interesting sci-fi in like a rundown Manhattan. Like I'm into this all of a sudden. So I don't like PC gamers anymore. Like I am one, but I don't like that they lied to me for so long about Crysis, because I think they are. I don't want to talk too much about it on the show because I think it's kind of neat to like run into some of the plot twists. But I'm actually engaged with the writing of these games now, and I'm actually really vibing. Again, I like horror. I'm a horror person, so you throw elements of like techno like body horror in there, get me some like Tetsuo the Iron Man in there, you get me some of that like high concept impossible to grasp cosmic horror. I'm into it. So big dumb FPS games, but I'm vibing, and it's a good break from the JRPG spree I've been on recently. So
that's the best kind of spree. Let's just throw it out there.
I need to take like a week off work to just not work, not do anything around the house, not even sleep, just burn through like 3 more JRPGs.
Just get my job backlog, and then move to an area with snow.
Kenny, you talked about backlog, and like, man, the problem is I was really good at getting through my backlog early in the pandemic because I started with all the short games and all the little games, and now my backlog is only JRPGs.
Yeah.
and that's rough. Because I'm not getting that dopamine hit of finishing a short game in between, 60-hour-long JRPGs. I've just got to beat a Tales game and then move straight on into a Final Fantasy, and it's like, fuck. So, bleh.
Well, just wait till John gets you on 14, then you'll have 300 hours of
Jeff
backlog, right?
and I are going to work together. Jeff and Britt.
Any game that takes me longer than the entire Xenosaga trilogy to beat is not worth my time. I'm sorry.
Why would you play the Xenosaga trilogy?
I know, right? It's far too many hours for what you get out of it. It's almost like Final Fantasy 14.
But Final Fantasy 14 is good.
I don't know that yet.
I'm just telling you it is. It's critically acclaimed.
I don't have 300 hours. I don't. So I'm sorry. I'm gonna play a bunch more indie games instead.
Google Fact Checker says that 14 is good.
Yeah, it does.
According to experts,
you can actually Google it.
I can play like 30 great little indie games in the time it would take me to play FF14. So I'm making my choice.
So now that Derek has gone, and now that Derek has made me feel like a jerk,
now you may return to your transition.
Him over, which I did not mean to, Derek. I apologize.
It's okay.
You know I love you. I'll state again, and it's patting ourselves in the back a bit, but I also don't want anybody to get the wrong impression. Like so on this podcast, we are Square Enix partners, right? Like we have received codes from them, we do content for them, but that doesn't mean we can't criticize them. And that's what we're gonna do right now, because we do need to talk just a little bit.
Square Enix, but they're like the recent
blender. Right. And so we need to talk about the letter that that Square Enix CEO Yosuke Matsuda released on basically like what it was like January 1st, right? Right, guys? Like
I think it was right before
time
the
is
New Year.
A flat circle. I don't know shit anymore.
I don't know. Britt, stick around. I promise this isn't going to take very long. So essentially he wrote a letter to celebrate the new year and kind of let investors know and gamers know what to expect out of Square Enix going forward in 2022. And what's funny is that he said Happy New Year and immediately launched into his spiel. And I'm just gonna pick some of the choicest parts of this letter here. He was talking about the metaverse. He said the metaverse will likely see a meaningful transition to a business phase of 2022 with a wide range of services appearing on the scene. As this abstract concept begins to take concrete shape in the form of product and service offerings, I'm hoping that it will bring about changes that have a more substantial impact on our business as well. And he even used the words a significant business opportunity, which like if you're addressing your audience, which are made up 100% of gamers, and you say we've identified a great business opportunity, that's never a good start. Never a fucking good way to frame your narrative. But then, this is the real part of the letter I want to focus on, because, right. So first he says, I see the play to earn concept that has people so excited. Bro, nobody's excited about this. Like, play to earn, dude. This isn't a fucking job. This is we do this for fun. Nobody wants to play to earn. But speaking of fun, immediately after that is the most talked about portions that Finn already knows what's coming because he's grinning over there. I realize that some people who, by the way, quotes, play to have fun, and who currently form the majority of players have voiced their reservations toward these new trends, and understandably so. I can't even read this with a straight face. However, I believe that there will be a certain number of people whose motivation is to play to contribute, by which I mean to help make the game more exciting.
I mean, I just have a hard time taking the letter seriously for the same reason I have.
Who plays games for fun, guys?
I have a hard time taking any of these letters from any of these other companies talking about NFTs and seriously, because I'm gonna bet you something right now, and I'm too broke to bet money, so we'll just bet my reputation because I don't give a shit about that. Nothing's gonna come of this. Nothing's gonna come of most of these companies talking about NFTs. This is a bunch of 60 and 70-year-old technologically illiterate investors
guys who don't play games,
who have seen these things trending on social media or reading articles about it, and they're like, well, we need to have the NFTs to make the money. That letter was not aimed at gamers. It was aimed at satisfying a bunch of buzzing investors who just want to hear that they're jumping on the shiny new train. But that train's not only not going anywhere, it's not actually a train. Like, nobody is going to find a way to meaningfully implement this stuff. Well, so I think Ubisoft rushing into it and completely falling flat is like...
What was that 600, like you had to play the game for 600 hours and you got like a hat? Like, what was that? What was that shit? Who knows what I'm talking about? There was a game, it was a Ubisoft game, and it might have been, was it Rainbow Six?
It was a Tom Clancy game.
It was a Tom Clancy game, right?
Was it Breakpoint? Yeah.
I think it was Breakpoint.
Fan, you could play that for 600 hours and get like a fucking hat that you could like, and like it was an NFT, and like I don't, and like the pushback to this is so fun. I have never seen anything like who would have thought that the thing to bring the gaming audience together was a shitty letter by Square Enix CEO talking about how traditional gaming has offered no explicit incentive to this latter group of people, talking about the one whose motivation is play to contribute. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Don't offer them any fucking incentive. These are the same people who fucking create bots to farm gold in World of Warcraft. Like, don't fucking incentivize these people. It is the most tone deaf thing I think I have ever seen from the head of any. Like, I'm baffled by it. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to this? Because I feel like I don't want, like, obviously we don't want to go off the rails talking about NFTs, but considering that this is from Square Enix, which is one of the largest developers in the world, I think it was worth
you've
bringing
got like
up.
Konami just announced what they're doing, like Castlevania NFT, whatever NFTs. That fucking means. Like,
they're so ugly.
Oh my god!
It doesn't matter because nobody wants them, right? They've been flopping the couple times they do get rushed out. There's nobody who's coming up with good reasons for how these will meaningfully add to the player. Like, it's just buzzwords. It's just marketing people and C-suite executives throwing out buzzwords.
True, we do love doing that. Buzzwords are great.
Yeah, and usually buzzwords, you could at least down the road, enough people say games as a service that we turn it into a thing, and we kind of figure out what that trend means, and then that becomes a trend in gaming. But like NFTs from the beginning, crypto in general has been a solution looking for a problem. Like, this is not a place to talk about that shit in depth, but NFTs is just an extension of the same thing, which is it's a technological solution that isn't actually solving a problem. So this is not going to go anywhere. This is not. I just don't like. You have every reason to be mad. I think it's dumb. I think it's irresponsible. All of this rush into crypto and currency and NFTs is awful for the environment. What did we just get that report of, like, Bitcoin used more energy last year than like several small countries. So, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that's the difference.
Kenny, from a freelance perspective, like, have you seen anything in gaming that would suggest it's a thing of the future?
I think people want it to be. I think that, like, we get a lot of press releases about, not as, on this level, but from like indie or whatever, where they're like, we're thinking about NFTs. They don't really know what they want to do with it exactly. It's just like everyone has this, or seemingly, right? Like, everyone's going to have these things, so we got to get out in front of it. So let's announce something, figure it out later, and then pretend like we were a part of this thing this whole time. I just think it's interesting because in the wording, they don't seem to know what they're going to do with it at all. And even if they do, it doesn't sound appealing. It sounds something like what's that game, Roblox? That kind of like, it basically rips its creators off. It abuses its creators. It doesn't pay them the way it's supposed to. You're not going to get what you think you're going to get by creating And the people who typically are creating things to share and to make games better are the modders. We already have that. So to try to incentivize with NFTs, which a lot of people don't know what that is, in a video game, especially video games like that Square could make, right? That just doesn't seem like a really smart thing to do. It reminds me of the auction house in Diablo 3. Like, it's just, you're waiting for something bad to happen with your creators is basically what it is. It's you're going to give them something, they're going to try to make money, they're not going to be able to make the money that they should make, and you're going to profit. And eventually people are going to turn on you and you're going to look bad. Like, we've seen this before with other, types of, I don't want to say microtransactions, but you know what I mean, like type of programs that try to incentivize getting over on your creators, essentially.
Cool. Yeah, I figured you might have some nice insight into that.
So, again,
JPEG's bad.
Yeah, like I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I just, the tone deafness of it is really what got me. So I did think it was worth kind of just bringing up. As far as actual real topics go, PSVR 2 announced out of like fucking nowhere. Like, I was just like, I got out of the shower and I picked up my phone and I was like, oh.
Well, to be fair, it is the Consumer Electronics Show right now.
Right, but I didn't even know that was happening because we're in a hell timeline, and that's just not a thing I'm even checking on right now. Jeff, did you watch any of the PSVR 2 showcase or no?
Nothing. Nope. I know it's a thing.
So
I did.
The thing that excites me most about this is that it's one cord. Like, that's,
and
that
if you've used the PSVR before, you know that alone is a selling point.
The PSVR, trying to hook the PSVR up, was watching me try to do it was like watching a monkey trying to fuck a coconut. It wasn't pretty.
I love that specific example, and
he really does.
I hate it so much.
But you know what? It's a Marine Corps thing, okay? We said that all the time in the Marine Corps. So just deal with it. Monkey fucking a coconut. But beyond, so like before we get into the technical aspects of PSVR 2, one of the reasons I had Grant on tonight, other of course than him being a great guy, was that Grant is a huge advocate for disability and for disabled gamers being able to play. And it's true, right? Like, everybody should be able to play. I find that, so I've made a lot of friends in gaming who are disabled in some way, shape, or form. And once obviously I've never had to deal with disability myself, at least not a disability that prevents me from, being able, to manipulate a controller. But so I could never truly understand. But once you actually get to know a group of people and understand the hardships that they have to deal with on a daily basis, you start looking at things through a different lens, right? So one of the things that first jumped into my mind when I saw PSVR 2 being announced was that's not very disability friendly. Which is literally one, and so I was waiting for them to say, and this is how we're going to handle accessibility. And it never kind of happened. So, Grant, is there any way to make VR headsets, and it doesn't have to be specific to PSVR, is there any way to make this stuff more accessible, or is that just like an inherent flaw that's baked into the technology that we can't do anything about?
It depends on who you're referring to, right? So whenever I write about accessibility, I always make it a point to say that, like, there's no concrete answer to anything related to accessibility. What's accessible for me may not be for someone else, and vice versa. So I can say, for me, VR will probably never be accessible. But for people who are deaf, hard of hearing, even for people who have low vision, they could come up with some cool, inventive ways for them to use the headset properly. Even certain people with physical disabilities may be able to put the headset on and move just enough to experience whatever game that they're playing. It's one of those pieces of tech that, for me personally, I hope it never replaces traditional gaming. But I also don't want to discredit it in how other disabled people could use it. So when I saw the announcement, no, I was immediately turned off. I know I'm never gonna buy it. It's just an easy decision for me, but I am curious to see if they do come up with certain techniques or pieces of equipment that other disabled people can use to benefit from it.
Yeah, and there is not to kind of be too much of a downer, but there's just like a sadness in your voice when you say that I'm not going to buy it. That really kind of hits me.
Well, I'm always sad, but no.
Well, I mean, everybody on this podcast is sad 24/7, except Ken. He's happy. But yeah, I'll kick this over to Ken. Looking at this, because I do want to circle back to the accessibility issue. I want to get Ken's perspective as a freelance journalist. Did you have any forewarning at all that PSVR 2 was going to be announced at the Consumer Electronics Show?
No, I think the people who would have gotten notified would be staff at like some of the major sites,
like IGN,
to make sure that, to kind of make sure they were able to cover it in a timely manner. But I think a lot of them didn't even know either. It was kind of like, it kind of like flew by, like, oh, this is a thing that's happening. There was rumors about it, but at least from the people that I know personally, at IGN and some of the other sites, they didn't know either.
So, is there any level of excitement for this? Like, I figured we might be getting a follow up to PSVR, but I don't feel like PSVR lit the world on fire. Like, I don't see a huge market for this. So,
I'm gonna jump in.
Go ahead, Finn,
because
please.
I am the target audience for the PSVR, because I really loved my PSVR and I'm been really enjoying my Oculus Quest 2. And I think it's because of the Oculus's success that we're seeing a PSVR 2. Probably, I mean, Sony is not immune to just dropping technologies that they've pushed really hard for a while. I mean, we all remember 3D. But I think the difference is this technology, especially when it's the Sony one, it lives and dies on how much Sony itself supports it, and that has always traditionally been really strong at first, and then if it doesn't immediately set the world on fire, we start seeing very immediate diminishing returns. But for the longest time, people were wondering, like, where's the PSVR games? Because and now we know that they've all been in development for PSVR 2. I'm very curious to find out, will this be backwards compatible? I think in terms of just is VR headsets, the tech is really cool. I really enjoy the upgrades to the PSVR experience, whether it's the new controllers, the in-headset tracking so that you don't also need a PlayStation camera to track your head movements or eye movements. The one cord factor. Like what were the other bullet points were just, I think having 4K VR is really cool. The 4K HDR, the expanded field of view. I think it'll be important to see whether or not it plays nice with PC. Sony has been being cozier with releasing their games on PC. Will we see, because Oculus Quest thrives a lot on being able to sync up with Steam VR. I don't think we're going to go that far, but I think the Oculus has kind of wedged VR gaming more mainstream than when the PSVR launched. It was very much an early adopter technology. And I think there is now more room for it to be a much larger success, whether it's because of the PS5's increased capabilities, which will allow the PSVR 2 to run things better, because a lot of the problems in VR were bottlenecked by the PlayStation 4. So that won't be a feature anymore. And I think launching with a VR experience based on Horizon is a strong start. I, for one, am waiting eagerly for Asobi to announce Astrobot Rescue Mission 2 or
Wait,
whatever.
who's Sobi?
Asobi?
Oh, I thought you said Sobi. I was like, did you mean to
No.
say Sony and like it came out
No,
wrong?
like the gas station
Yeah.
energy
Yeah.
drinks, right? And
Yeah, the
glass
drink.
bottles.
Sobi. Yeah, absolutely.
Team Asobi,
Well-known-
the Astrobot
well-known
people.
developer.
I really hope that we're going to get a new one because to this day, Astrobot Rescue Mission is a top 3 VR experience, and one of the best games on the PlayStation library.
It's
I
pretty
will die
good.
on that hill.
It's pretty good. No. You don't need to die on that hill. Don't die. It's good. I'll back you up.
But so to answer your question, who's excited about it? I can't speak for everyone. I mean, there's always inherent problems with VR. It's always going to be a niche tech that's attached to the a big purchase. Like that's the Oculus Quest thrives because it's a standalone. You buy it, and even if you don't sync it up to Steam, it works out of the box as a VR headset. The PlayStation's always going to need a PlayStation 5, which right now still not easy to get. So how hard is the PSVR going to get? I don't know, but I'm excited. I love this. I love technology, and I love when new stuff gets announced. So I will tentatively be excited about it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I would say you go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was gonna say I think that's part of the appeal because like VR is essentially the people who love VR already are. This is great. This is good news. But the people who might be on the fence, they might be looking for another, Half-Life game. They might be looking for another, a big, tentpole game. And this is the moment where Sony could actually make that by, launching some first-party games where you just have to have the VR headset. And in that, everybody wins because now it's something that isn't as niche as it could be because you have a big company that's doing that. Maybe that'll nudge Microsoft a little bit. Maybe that'll nudge Nintendo a little bit to kind of invest in these things a little bit more. The problem, like you were saying though, is that it's very hard to find PS5s right now. So announcing this the way they announced it and then having a first party game come for it, it's like, well, if I can't even find the PlayStation 5, why am I even looking for a peripheral that's going to be an extra $200? Or we don't know the price, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? But why would I look for that or be excited? I haven't found the base thing yet. You know what I mean? And so that's the only thing. But it could potentially be something bigger than the Oculus because even with the Oculus being, simple to use, or not simple to use, but you don't need a base thing to use it. Outside of a few games I can think of, there's not a big like, this is the Mario of VR, this is the Sonic of VR, this is, you know what I mean? I think Resident Evil 4 was big, but it's Resident Evil 4, and then we're waiting on the remake. Like, is that going to really move unit? You know what I mean? So I think there's potential with Sony, but they can't go the way of the way that they did with their wands. Like you can't just, or the Vita, or dozens of other things that they've launched and kind of killed.
Hey, long live the Wonder Book, okay?
I actually want to get Jeff's perspective on this real quick because Jeff, you're somebody who has dealt with like severe carpal tunnel, right? Like you've had some issues with your hands over the past few years, and there was a time where you how long was it, Jeff, that you couldn't even pick up a controller? Like
I want to 4 months probably.
Yeah, does something like VR does something like a PSVR 2 appeal to you, where you're not so much manipulating your fingers as you are just kind of like gently holding two controllers and using motion controls?
Yeah, actually, funny enough, I mean, I had a PSVR for a bit, and VR is a tricky thing because it's kind of like you have to go all in and just hope that you like it. I'm certainly not going to touch a greasy demo VR headset in a mall. So I had literally never tried VR until I just took a gamble and dropped $400 on it. And it's, and I do get really bad motion sickness from not from movies and games, but from carnival rides or car rides. I get very car sick all the time. So I was like, I had no idea how I'm going to handle. Luckily, I didn't get any motion sickness, but I I absolutely loved my PSVR. The only complaint I had, I think, was just the low resolution. Some games were a little fuzzy, and I haven't played a PC VR headset, even though I have a high-end PC, so I don't have anything to compare it to. But just I was immediately impressed by the immersion, and it was so nice to be able to just kind of experience stuff without, without like my whatever my Switch bumpers do to my fingers, where everything just gets jammed up like this. It was really nice just to be able to kind of move a little more freely, and with less focus on the really detailed heavy button mechanics. And funny enough, the hands weren't an issue, but I got glasses for the first time right before the pandemic hit, and I found after I got my glasses, I couldn't. I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a big nose or like the way they sit, but they didn't work with my headset. And once I got used to my glasses, the eye strain without them was too bad to actually use the headset without them. So I actually just had to give it up, and I don't think I can use a VR headset now unless the shape is really different. But I love if I was still playing VR, and if the headset worked for me personally, like if I was able to kind of use it with my glasses and stuff, I'd be really excited for this one, I think.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Derek, please.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think part of the problem is that the Quest 2 is kind of the bar with VR right now, and I think that it took like a perfect storm for VR to even get where it is now, right? I think that the Quest 2 is finally the first time people have a headset that has a high enough resolution to not have that real bad screen door effect. It's usable standalone, but also can link up to a computer, and thankfully Steam VR is compatible with the Oculus platform, so you can use that for PC VR as well. So it's like flexible in a way that VR headsets generally haven't been before. Basically, if you were looking to get into VR before now, the Quest 2 kind of let you get everything in one. And it's not the single best headset in terms of resolution, but it was the one that would let you do pretty much anything.
Is this going to be more powerful, Derek? Sorry to cut you off,
the PSVR 2 is a little bit higher resolution per eye and a little higher field of view
than the Oculus 2.
A lot of that pixel density may just go towards the increased field of view and the bigger actual screens on the eye.
Gotcha. Okay.
They seem pretty comparable in a lot of ways, right? The Quest finally brought where you're no longer using external cameras and sensor towers to track you, that it's just the cameras built in on the headset, and the PSVR is going to do the same thing, and the PSVR in a lot of ways seems to be kind of just like a small step up from the Quest 2, with the exception of, is it going to do the thing the PSVR did and only work with the PS5? Because if it does, I think that gets harder. I think part of what makes the $300 or $400 price tag of an Oculus Quest worth it to some people, and Jeff, like you said, for a lot of people, it's a total gamble. For me, it was a total gamble whether or not it'd be worth it for me. And I get horrible motion sickness a lot of times, but I still do enjoy the limited sessions that I have with my Quest. But what made that worth it for me was knowing that there was a lot more use cases for it. I could take it, into my kitchen or living room where there's a bit more space and do something like Beat Saber, or I could sit down in my chair at my computer and play Half-Life Alyx. And knowing that there were games like Half-Life Alyx out there waiting for me.
That's rumored to be coming to PSVR too.
That'd be good. That'd be excellent, because it's a good game and more people should get the chance to play it. I don't
like. The game was VR.
I'm not. Well, it wouldn't work outside of VR.
Well, I'm talking about a new Half-Life game period.
Yeah, we need a Half-Life 3. But yeah. So I think Finn kind of began to touch on this. But if somebody gets a PSVR, can I plug that in and use that as a VR headset on my computer with Steam VR? Why not? If not, because it's going to be a USB-C connection. It's the same basic technology. It's why not? Other than just to keep that walled garden up. And the other way around, then why is it that if my Oculus Quest 2 is so similar, why couldn't I just hook my Oculus Quest 2 up over USB-C and use that? Like, you know, I think the only thing about PSVR, well, I won't say the only thing. I say the main thing that pops out to me personally is it reinforces this whole walled garden thing that I'm really hoping to see break down more and more, and I think has been breaking down more and more over the last generation and this generation. But we don't have those details, and I just want to hear them. But also, I think a lot of people are going to get into it and spend a bunch of money on a headset that only works on their PlayStation, and then find out that, you know, they don't have the space for it, or it makes them nauseous, or, you know, it really is hit or miss whether or not it's like the Wii in a lot of ways, right? Where the Wii was a nightmare for some people, able-bodied or disabled alike, like, you know, in terms of like motion of movement. You know, it's very funny, Jeff, bringing up that you had carpal tunnel and then your PSVR controls were actually easier for you to use than a gamepad, and it really is just a reminder of like everybody's situation's kind of different, and you never know what you're getting into. But I just want more details. I need more details to know. It looks like a good piece of tech, but how are you going to use it? Because VR is a cool niche, but it's still a niche.
Well, and that's the thing. That's kind of where I want to kind of like put a bow on this conversation and then move on to conventions. Is that I hope, for the sake of individuals like Grant and others who are not able-bodied, who have to deal with things that the majority of us do not have to deal with, these challenges on a daily basis. I hope that things like VR stay niche. Simply because I am a strong advocate for everybody being able to play by any means possible. And, you know, while it is advantageous for some who have issues like with Jeff with carpal tunnel, I you know, for the vast majority of disabled people, you know, or, you know, like when I say disabled, I'm talking about people who are not fully able-bodied. There are so many roadblocks there that I don't really see a way past that. And I don't think it's ever going to be anything other than a niche product. I simply don't think the market is there for VR, at least not for the mass market. Especially since you guys know this thing's going to be pretty pricey. And especially if it releases this year, combined with the availability issues that Sony has had and the fact that a PlayStation 5 is very expensive, I don't know how many people are going to be willing to spend $300, $400 on an extra peripheral that they might get a little bit of use out of. But to kind of close this conversation out, Grant, is there anything? Can you think of one thing that any company could do to make VR technology more viable for individuals who are not fully able-bodied?
It depends on who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Again, because like for me, no, probably not. Like VR is just gonna be one of those things that I'm guaranteed to not be able to play, which is fine. But for people who are maybe quads, who have some function in their arm, but they can't hold controllers, maybe VR is gonna be great for them. So it depends. I think the best thing that Sony can do, which they've proven to do in the past with a lot of their studios, is bring on disabled consultants to help refine their products and test out all the issues that may appear. Because I don't have an answer, I just think if they want to include disabled people, do it from the ground up. Do it from the design process. Do it from the research, the testing, all of that, because at that point, there's going to be far less bugs and issues than if you were just release it
Right.
without any form of testing whatsoever.
Okay, well, and you know, speaking of how
are you going to make this transition? Really?
Will you have faith in me?
No,
Derek?
never.
Speaking of it, making things more accessible to people, let's talk about conventions and especially digital conventions in the post-COVID era. Because when you're talking about individuals who are dealing with autoimmune deficiencies, things like E3 going digital could be quite advantageous. How's that for a transition, Derek?
I have an important question.
Why don't you address my awesome transition first?
No, I have an important question. And this Grant and Kenny, y'all may have the answers for me here, maybe not. But I'm not press. I've been to a lot of PAXs, but never something like E3. If E3 goes digital, I think for most gamers, most consumers, that means nothing because they're not going to E3. They're already just watching these presentations digitally and going, wow, cool trailers, man. But what does that mean for press? What does that mean for, people who would normally be getting in? Like, how does something like that even conceivably work?
And I think for the most part, I think it's going to be better. I think that, even before, considering pandemic, like restrictions and stuff like that, E3 was tough. There was a lot of work, and not to be a dick to people who aren't press, but people who weren't, at least to the E3s I went to, it was very hard to work around them. Whether it was like,
opening E3 to the public was one of the most unpopular decisions I've seen among press in forever.
And it's not to be, for everybody who's like, I didn't get to go to E3, Kenny, you suck. Just hold on.
Nobody here thinks that.
When we went to, like fans and whatnot, but like when we went to E3 the first time, I remember trying to, so we weren't a really big crew, and we had to take turns. Like I would interview someone and then someone else would do it. And if it wasn't something where it was just a, interview like behind closed doors, we could have like our own camera and stuff like that. And so we would take turns holding it. But like on the show floor, there's no room for like a tripod and stuff like that. So you just had to hold a camera. And I remember we were trying to interview the devs behind Heavily Seward. We had a time slot set up and everything, and we went to go talk to them, and we were on the floor. So they were, one of us was playing it while they were talking to the person. I was, kind of recording over my shoulder, and I kept getting pushed and nudged, and to the point where we couldn't even use the video. And I'd stop multiple times, like, hey, like we're trying to do a thing. Like if you could just give us a second, because there's like, mind you, there's multiple machines with Heavenly Sword being played. We were just in front of this one, but people were just so, so I can only imagine with some type of virus going around how people would be and act towards one another. And you didn't really see that with press. With press, it was very much like, oh, they're doing a thing, I'll wait, or because everyone understands that it's a lot of work. Because once you're done with that interview, you have like another appointment, you have something to write, you have to get something to eat because you're gonna faint all the walking and stuff that you do.
Got to stay hydrated.
Exactly, I totally forgot that. I forgot it when I was there, and because of that, it makes it difficult. And then especially with all the lights and the booth babes and it's like all that stuff was distracting. All that stuff was just in the way for the most part. And while that's fun to see from a distance, or like, if you're a fan, it's not helpful with working. Whereas I think online or having it all digital is great because it's much easier to book appointments. It's much easier to keep appointments and have it be a closed off thing. It's much easier to, hit multiple things, because I remember when trying to get like the Sony presser, they weren't in the same place at one point. So we had to drive. And if you can imagine trying to drive, during E3 in a rental all the way down to the other spot, the only way we could figure out was like have people I had to drop people off and then drive over to Sony while the Nintendo thing was going on, right? And so that's much easier with digital. But I think the problem with digital, though, is that because it's more of a free-for-all now, no one is, there's some, Nintendo won't step on Microsoft's toes because it's a big entity. But there's a lot of indie shows. There's a lot of, Square Enix had a show I don't think they needed, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people who just had to have a show. And because of that, that gets hard to cover because you're like, you know, I have like multiple YouTube videos up or Twitch videos up trying to follow everyone. And then not everyone is as good as Nintendo in terms of like pre-recording something and then showing that off. I think there's some steps there that needs to be taken to improve. But overall, I think not having to fly across the country to cover these shows, not have to deal with the craziness that goes on at these shows, it's better even without COVID. I think.
Well, so speaking of flying, so speaking of E3 period, Reb actually just tweeted something out as a follow-up to the article she wrote earlier today. She said, to clear up confusion, the ESA has said absolutely nothing about a digital event, and when pressed, they couldn't confirm one. All they said was the in-person event was canceled. That doesn't rule out a digital E3, but as of now, one has not been announced and no dates have been given.
So now it's actually up in the air whether that means that E3 is a digital
canceled
event
at
or
all.
Canceled at all. Which
well, and Jeff Grubb made a good point. He said if Summer Games Fest has press out to LA for Judges Week, and there's nothing from E3 at all, you kind of have to wonder, is E3 going to happen at all this year?
Well, but the same conversation goes true for events like PAX as well, right? Like
but I mean, the focus of PAX is different, though. Like, I mean, the focus of PAX is not to so much showcase brand new games and big reveals. As it is like a celebration of gaming and giving people the chance to play games that are coming out next year. Or,
it's a hybrid because you've definitely got a more consumer like focus on PAX, where it's always been open to the public, if I remember correctly. Like, it's
correct.
There is a bigger focus on indies and setting up like the indie alleys and things like that, and but in terms of playing that press game and getting those interviews and getting those demos with games that you haven't been able to put hands on before and aren't publicly accessible otherwise, like it kind of fulfills another one of those roles. But I guess that's what I'm curious about is like, PAX East is still on at this point.
Yeah, we'll see.
But this is also a world where more and more, like, it used to be E3 was the one thing. June every year, that's where everything was. And now it feels like we got more and more of these events where people go hands-on with these games and get these interview opportunities with devs. We're moving more to a digital future. We've got more of these big digital events. I mean, Nintendo does how many directs a year? PlayStation and Xbox are starting to do the same thing. Now we've got Summer Games Fest, and we've got, it just feels like there's a lot of it's being like decentralized. And the upsides to that, Kenny, it was a really interesting perspective in terms of like dealing with people who are not press or not trying to play the game can be kind of frustrating. But the flip side of that is, for us, a big part of going to stuff like PAX, going to stuff like E3 was the networking. And it is really different to do that all digital, all online versus doing that in person, being at the Westin lobby and just, talking to people and,
or pouring people bourbon from under your coat
from secret backpacks. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
It's not that you've ever done that.
No, man, look, I may or may not have smoked on some upper floor rooms with some people that have more money than I can imagine. But like some of that's kind of the fun of these events, and that's definitely sad to see go. But I think on the flip side, she's not here right now, but one of Kate Sanchez, but why though? One of her favorite drums to bang on, and it's in the realm of TV and film criticism more than games criticism, but being able to do this stuff digital also opens potentially opportunities up for a lot more marginalized voices. A lot of smaller scale outlets and critics. A lot of, let's be real, like queer people of color, women are not always given the same, disabled people are not always given the same opportunities, rarely given the same opportunities as able-bodied straight cis white men are in this industry. So opening up more opportunities for broke mid-level folks to try to get those interviews, get those demo opportunities that they couldn't get flying out to California, renting an expensive ass hotel room. Like there's an advantage to that. You really do kind of democratize the process in a way, I feel like. So I don't know. It's yes or no. I hope that in-person events don't totally go away.
Me too, because I miss you guys.
I don't think they will, but I'm feeling like, even though it's not my thing, man, this digital future might just be more fair in general.
I mean, no, go ahead, please, Ken.
Well, I was gonna say, just to tag on, like the being able to talk to people and reach out and touch other people, your peers, people that you've seen online for years and actually didn't get to meet in person, was really cool. Getting to, like, years ago, play Left 4 Dead and eat sandwiches with the Game Trailers folks was really freaking awesome. Because yeah, I see you guys on TV and well, not TV, but online all the time. It's like, oh, I get to shake your hand. Really, really dope. So that is something that's going to be kind of missed. Yeah. I think, if anything, if it's not digital, at the very least, have it where it's toned down a little bit. So not everyone has to go out to this particular thing. Like you said, there's way more shows now. And so having it where it's not just this one time of the year where this big event happens and everyone has to change their lives around to get there, I think then we could still kind of do this similarly to how PAX does East and West and whatnot. But the old E3, I don't think that's going to work.
And it'll be interesting to see kind of the ripple effect that this has throughout the gaming industry as time goes on. Because not to be too much of a downer, but as of yet, there is no real light at the end of the tunnel of this pandemic. Like this, we're entering year 3, and we're still dealing with this. There were just we are now the world champs in new COVID infections, and so yay, world champs. And so I don't see this going away anytime soon. And so I'm wondering. I mean, like, look at what happened with PAX West last year, right? Like, nobody fucking went. You guys all, I'm assuming, saw the pictures of PAX West coming out of Seattle last year, where like half of the exhibitors didn't even show up, and the floors were empty. I'm really surprised that PAX East is a thing that's even happening this year with Omicron.
I mean, before Omicron, it might not have seemed that unreasonable. Demand vaccination, demand people be masked up, but Omicron's changing that game a bit, isn't it? So
it is, but there's something else to all this. When we talk about, kind of digitizing these conferences. Now, for somebody like for again, other than Grant being a great guy, another reason I wanted to bring him on to talk about this is that for someone like Grant, traveling in a pre-COVID world is, I'm sure difficult enough, but traveling in a post-COVID world where people don't have enough sense of responsibility to get vaccinated or wear masks or take care of themselves and the people around them, it becomes potentially deadly. So there is I sit here and I say, I miss hanging out with my friends, and that's true, but there's also a very distinct advantage to these events going fully digital. And that is, people like Grant who deal with these issues are able to attend them and provide that coverage without having to essentially fear for their fucking safety. Grant, if you could you speak on that just a bit? Because I know that this is something that is very important to you as somebody who is a young up and coming writer in this industry.
Yeah, I always have to be careful when I say it's just framing and phrasing such. COVID, as awful as it is, obviously, was one of the best things to happen in terms of people understanding what disabled people have been asking for literally generations. Work from home, digital events, the removal of like this forced need to socially interact outside of your house, which can be inaccessible, too costly, so on and so forth. last year was the first year I've ever been able to attend E3 as press. And even though it was an absolute disaster, because that E3 press portal was just awful. It was so bad. It was a really great way for me to connect with studios, developers. I interviewed Jeff Keighley for a piece on what he was doing to make Summer Game Fest accessible. He did, I think, over a dozen um, languages for closed captions. I think there were ASL interpreters for his streams. These are the ways that you include disabled people. So while you don't have this level of camaraderie, physically speaking, for me as a writer who needs to cover these events, who needs to discuss potential accessibility, this is, as terrible as this is, one of the best things that ever happened. Is that now I don't need to sign up and request, oh, I can't make it because X, Y, and Z. Can I do a phone interview? I can be on the same playing field as everyone else. And if I don't get an interview, it's not because I physically couldn't, it's because I was scheduling, developers just weren't taking requests, or what have you. I am sad that I'll never be able to go, probably, to a physical E3, because that's always been a dream of mine, especially now that I'm covering the industry. But this is probably one of the best things that ever happened in terms of like equality and accessibility.
I'm just glad that you're here in this industry at all, Grant, because I think that your voice and well, no, and I mean that, like, your voice and the voice of other disabled individuals is important. Like 10 years ago, hell, 5 years ago, nobody was having conversations about accessibility at all, right?
To be able to interview, like, because we all, Jeff is like the biggest merger in the games industry, right? To be able to sit down and one-on-one interview and be like, so what are you doing to prioritize accessibility? And for him to give actual answers, not just like PR fluff, was like, oh, this is a sign of actual change and things are progressing.
Well, it's people like you, Grant, who are driving that change. And like,
I always feel weird when people say it's not me. It's like it's people are finally listening. Like whenever I write an article, I always make a point to not really include my perspective because it's not about me. It's about like the people who for so long never had a voice, who were never listened to. So like, if I'm interviewing Joe Schmo, who just wants to go to E3, but he can't because he's wheelchair bound, well now he can. That's how I view it. Yeah, I was a little bit weird. Everybody grants it.
That's fucking outstanding, man. That's that is so cool that you got the chance to interview Keighley. Like, I mean, literally the biggest name in the industry, and you got to interview him, man. That's fucking not in a million years would. It's just so fucking cool, dude. I'm really happy for how far you've come. Derek, you look like you had something on your mind.
I was just gonna say, like, this isn't the first time I've heard something like this, but it hits me every time I hear it of the idea that like this last year was like the best year a lot of people had, in journalism, in a lot of different fields, just because people have had to find out what it feels like to be on that side of the screen in a lot of ways. And I hear that, and it's far from the first time I've heard that, and every time I hear it, it just constantly makes me, I just fucking wish it didn't take something as world-alteringly devastating as COVID to get people on that same page, to recognize that so many of the barriers set up in everyday life, when it comes to not like living, professional life, passions and hobbies, anything, that there's so many barriers in the way and so many different barriers in the way for so many different people, and it's the work from home examples is a perfect one to start with, because it's what everyone suddenly got hit with is like, oh yeah, shit, we could have been doing this all along. And I just hope that people don't lose that when we eventually get COVID under control. I'm gonna say eventually we will, but
I hope
we don't suddenly go back to, fuck it, everything's in person now, because it's the way we did it.
COVID is one of the reasons why, again, awful to say, because I'm immunocompromised, my dad has cancer, I'm not leaving my house. We're all vaccinated and boosted. But COVID's been the reasons that I can be a journalist. I don't need to move to LA to be a journalist. I don't need to move to New York or Boston or where all the major publications are.
Yeah.
I don't want to move to LA for any reason. Have you seen that traffic?
It's really bad.
It's really bad. It's really fucking bad. I think we can probably afford to. So we've gone over most of our. Do you guys see my lights going crazy here in the back for some reason?
Yeah.
I don't know what just happened. I think there must be a short in the system somewhere. It's really kind of freaking me out right now. I don't know what's happening. It's like a fucking rave in here all of a sudden. But that's really weirding me out, man.
Are you okay, John?
I don't know what's going on back there, dude. Holy shit. Well, it's not even there. It's all around the room, man. I think
it's not a ghost, man. You can unplug it. It's a wire.
I think there's a ghost in the machine somewhere. We can probably afford to close the show here out 3 minutes early. I think we've covered all of our topics.
It's been a hearty show.
It has. It's been a
John. I'm
nice...
begging you to. I know that as somebody with ADHD, that it's not as simple as just not. But I'm begging you to be stronger than the flashing lights right now.
Oh no! It's just distracting as fuck. Because I'm the whole. You may not be able to tell here, but the whole room is changing colors. Constantly, it feels like I just took some shrooms or something. But we can go. I think we can go ahead and cut it off here. Grant, where can people find you who aren't already following you? And they should be. If you're not following Grant, you should be. But if you want to fix that, where can people find you?
Don't follow me. I just shitpost.
Still, that's why
you can follow me on Twitter at super_crip 1994, and you can read my byline anywhere it talks about accessibility in gaming. IGN, Washington Post, Fanbyte. If there's an accessibility article, it's more than likely my byline. That sounds so horrible.
Awesome, outstanding. You've done some great work as well. And Ken, as a first-time guest on the show, if anybody in chat wants to find you, and they should, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at KennyUFG, and which is basically that everywhere. Instagram and stuff like that, but definitely on Twitter, because that's where I post just about everything that I do, and my portfolio, links and all that stuff, is there, so you can see all the places that I write. But yeah, definitely on Twitter. Yep.
Awesome, outstanding. And guys, you two have been great guests. Grant, we're gonna have you back in the future. You know that. You're always welcome here. And Kenny, I hope this isn't the last time we see you, man.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
All right. If you're not already a part of our Discord, I encourage you to join the other 350 people that are hanging out in our Discord and having a good time. We pride ourselves on inclusivity and positivity. We've also got some merch there. You can buy SDGC shirts and women's tees and hoodies and mugs, and every single dollar goes to various charities, whether it's Black Girls Code or Able Gamers or Take This or the Trevor Project. All of our money goes to charity. Every single bit. We don't get a single dime.
The merch stuff, to be clear.
For the merch stuff, yeah. And of course, whenever conventions do come back, and whenever we're going to them again, you can always support us at Patreon right there. All the stuff is in the chat here. For anybody listening to the show, You can find our merch at bonfire.com/store/SuperDeluxeGamesCast and our Patreon at patreon.com/official SDGC. We really appreciate everybody spending their time with us. Hopefully we're in for good things this year in 2022. I'm going to try to stay positive. My lights have stopped flashing, so I take that as a good sign. Things can only look up from here. And as always, guys, kindness costs nothing. We'll see you next week.